When I finished up the last nugget on getting started with AWS, I was thinking about, okay, where do we go now? And authentication and some of the keys, and wait, no. And I started going through all these different concepts of what to talk about next, and I thought, you know what? Let's not just talk about concepts. Let's get into it. Let's get into something practical, and then we'll fill in the concepts as they apply. It'll be a much more kind of hands-on approach. So I want to take you where just about everybody goes first in AWS, and that is EC2. Let's create some virtual machines, some images in the clouds. We're going to look at creating an EC2 instance, both picking the AMI, the Amazon machine image that we're going to build it from, and then looking at how to price this thing. There's three big pricing models you want to understand. Trust me, you want to understand, because a lot of people dive into this and they just use the default, which is on-demand pricing, which is great. It's a great way to kick the tires and get introduced to AMI to EC2. But there is a lot better pricing that you can get if you know the models. So let's start off with a blank slate. It's blank because I'm taking you there rather than just talking about it in a conceptual view. How we access the AWS Management Console and choosing an AMI, how to get started with this. So first place you want to go, and we talked about this in getting started, is the aws.amazon.com. That's kind of the land of AWS. And when you get here, you'll have the sign up, and you can click there to sign in. I usually just click straight down here and go to the AWS Management Console. It says, here's your AWS account. I've already got it saved in here. I'll click and sign in using the secure server. Now it's funny because this is, let me preface this. Ta-da! Intro music. The AWS Management Console. This is what it looks like as of a week ago. This is how fast things change. I think I even have it in a couple of the nuggets that I recorded last week. The old interface, they are constantly, Amazon is constantly revising things, adding new things. I mean, hang on, take a look over here. We've got the announcements. Let's just click on more. Look at these. These are big announcements. Like May 18th, they've added enhancements for elastic load balancing, listener certificates, cipher management. Hey, you can now do AWS load balancing. It looks like using command line tools. Just kind of various benefits. I'm just skimming these as I'm sitting here. Amazon announces support for MySQL read replica. AWS Elastic Beanstalk now available in Europe. It looks like we've got Amazon Simple Mail. Again, you're seeing all these. These are big announcements. CloudFront now supports dynamic content. Just kind of going down. I mean, that's a big announcement that they're going through. But look at something with me. Look at something. May 18th. That's what's the date? It's the 23rd today. That's just a few days ago. And then big announcement a day before that. Okay, a big announcement. Day before that. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a big day before that. This is how fast AWS is moving. And I mean, when you start thinking about, okay, let's compare AWS to some of the other competition. Yeah, I don't mean to sound arrogant by any means, but it's kind of like, really? What competition? And it's not that there aren't competitors. There are plenty of competitors kind of getting into the cloud. Let's host servers in the cloud, virtual servers. They are out there, but Amazon Web Services is moving so fast and got started so early in this to where they kind of blazed the frontier with it, and now it's like people are just scrambling to try and catch them. And good grief, how do you move at that kind of pace? To where I'm trying to record a series here. Come on, people, slow down. I'm trying to record a series, or I can at least get the interface to look the same. But it's just that's how fast this thing is moving. It's so development focus. It's amazing. So anyhow, let's get in. This is what the Amazon AWS Management Console looks like today, and we're going to start off by going to EC2. Now, this is diving into. Think of this as the module of the AWS Management Console. So now all of the focus and parameters are focused on creating an EC2 instance that I can run. Now, previously we used to have tabs going across. That's now been eliminated to where we can click down this drop down and kind of jump to all the different services that AWS supports, which some of these should probably look familiar from the previous nugget. But we're focused on EC2 creating an instance. First thing that we have to do is decide, where do I want it? You remember when we discussed this, Amazon is designed in a series of regions and availability zones. Forgive me, my drawing pad is kind of slanted up, so my penmanship isn't as nice and neat. But we've got availability zones, which are individual independent data centers that you can put your instances in. Now, when you're setting them up inside of a region, you want to know that everything in that availability zone is connected via high-speed fiber. Or I should say, did I say in? I mean between the availabilities. Just don't talk fast, Jeremy. So you put a server in here, the instance running right here, and you add a backup, a redundant server over here. They immediately are connected via high-speed fiber optic cables. Now, I want to really preface something. This is within a region. If you decide to go with another region, and the availability zones in there, now the internet is your backbone. You can establish VPNs and things like that between regions, and this is a pretty hot topic, but the regions do not have the high-speed fiber optic cable direct connect that is not charged. One of the things that Amazon will charge for is how much data that you're transferring. So if you're doing heavy data transfers between your regions, that can impact your costs. I just want to make sure that you know that going forward. So anything within a region, if you start in one region, begin there. As you see the need to where you start seeing some clients over in Europe or some clients in the United States, East Coast, West Coast, and you start needing to branch out, that really is a design consideration because you're going to have to start building bridges between the regions of servers that you're designing here. So we'll start off here. I'm choosing my regions. You can click the drop down. These are the current regions that AWS supports, and you're going to get tired of hearing me say this. These are the current. This is what's today, but I've got to say it because, I mean, this what's new tab, it's kind of like tomorrow I could say, hey guys, everything just changed. 5 more regions, 9 availability zones. Now the regions are high speed. I mean, anything could happen with this. So I am in Arizona. So I could say I want to go to California. It's the closest one to me to build my servers. Now immediately, I should have shown you on the first one, but you can see when I select this, it updates me on the availability zone status. The availability zones, in this case, there are 2 in the West region. Let me quickly flip back over to the East region. East region, I believe, if I remember what I saw just a moment ago, had 3 availability. Yes, so 3 availability zones that are there. So that may go into your planning. So you may be thinking, this is all stuff that you're planning beforehand. You may be thinking, well, let's go California. And then you think, well, I'd rather have the 3 independent data centers. And maybe most of our clients are on the East Coast. So again, be thinking of all these things going forward. So first big choice you have to make is what region do you want them in? And then from there, it's as easy as clicking the Launch Instance button. So I click on that, and now we're brought to the front with a wizard. Now the wizard makes it really easy to get started with an AMI. And let me actually back off a moment. I want to make sure I define the terms. AMI, what's that? An AMI is a Amazon machine image. Think of it as a hard drive frozen in time. So for example, if I were creating an AMI from scratch, maybe I would install Windows 2008 R2, get that running, throw IIS enabled with my web content on it, or referring to a storage spot with my web content, have whatever else, maybe throw WinZip. Just as an example, a zip utility to unzip files on there. And they say, okay, perfect, that's my ideal image, freeze. That is now stored as an AMI that I can generate instances from. Now, what is an instant? It's a running instance. It is a, let me not reuse the word. It is a running virtual server in the cloud. So for instance, when I say I want to run a server in the cloud, Amazon would say that's an instance. An instance that was generated originally from an Amazon machine image, from a hard drive frozen in time. Now when I generate that, I'm not going out there and I just can't draw right. I'm not going out there and saying this is now the running stored version of it and I'm updating that as I'm going. No, I'm transferring that AMI into, remember we talked about this, elastic block storage, EBS, or I'm transferring that into ephemeral storage that's running on a server and will disappear as soon as I eliminate it. So it's actually running as an instance from there. Now I could, let's say I go in there and update, I change my background color to blue, because I want that as my new standard. I put some new custom icons on there, and then I say, okay, that's my new image. I can then take that and save it as an AMI. as a, again, frozen in-time hard drive that I can then generate more servers from. More on that later, more strategy behind that later, but for now, that's what it is. So when I come over here to say, I want to launch an instance, it's going to say, well, what do you want to start from? I can either go the classic way, which I'd suggest, or maybe once you get a lot more experience, you go with the quick launch wizard. Quick launch allows you to come in here and say, well, I just quickly want to create a web server. And that'll be my instance name. Again, instance being a running virtual machine in the cloud, a virtual server in the cloud. So I've got, that's funny, I picked the same name they suggest. So web server CBT. Let's be a little unique, right? And then I'm going to say I want to, we'll talk about key pairs in just a moment. So I'm going to say none for now. But I want to generate this from this AMI. It's a pre-built Windows 2008 R2 base 64-bit machine. Continue, and it's going to go through and customize it. But I don't want to go quick launch until we understand the foundations. I'm going to go classic. So let's say I want to launch an AMI using the classic image. First thing that I'm going to do is pick an AMI. Now, Amazon has made it nice and easy for us because they say these are the #1 most common AMIs that people choose. Again, AMI being a frozen in time version of the server. Now, think about it. Think about your life and time and where you want to spend your time. Do you want to spend your time installing Windows 2008? Choosing next, typing in your license key. Is that where you want to spend your time, or do you want to pet your cat? Or go for a bike ride, or feed your fish, or go for a jog, or watch a movie, or that's what I know. Some of you might be thinking install Windows, but most of you are thinking I want to do that. So why go and install Windows manually when Amazon has done it for you and just pick? I want a Windows Server 2008 base machine. It's already licensed. It's already set up and ready to go. Why not do that? That's what Amazon said, and that's why they created this. They created very common image with SQL Server, with IIS already enabled, SQL Server Web. You can see Windows. I come over here. We've got Ubuntu Server. That's another very common deployment that people are using now. At 12.04 long-term support enabled. We've got Amazon's custom flavor of Linux. So one of the beautiful things about this is Amazon takes care of the licensing for you. I think I've mentioned this in a previous nugget, but for instance, Windows Server 2008 base, that's an expensive little program to buy. But when you choose Select, Amazon includes that as part of the hourly charge. So you're not buying a flat-out Windows 2008 image. Again, think of the traditional model, doing it yourself versus doing it this way. You would have to go buy that normally from Microsoft, but doing it this way, it's just included as part of the hourly charge. No huge upfront cost to take. Now, these are the quick start. This is Amazon's pre-built models for you, which there's a few of them, but maybe doesn't meet everything that you're looking for. Also note that the little star means it will work in the free tier. You can do this for free under your account. So we can also choose My AMIs. Now, right now that we just started this account, you'll see this change later, but it says you do not own any images, meaning you haven't either bought any, which I'll talk about that, or you haven't created any yourself. Because, for instance, I might say I want to start with Ubuntu Server 12.04. Let's select that and start going through the options and so on. But once I configure it perfectly and add my customizations, maybe I say, well, I no longer want to start from Amazon's vanilla template. I want to save all of my customizations as my own AMI. And you can imagine just how quickly this can build. All these AMIs are typically stored in the S3 buckets that you are able to save. But keep in mind, you are going to be charged for storage space in S3. It's very reasonable, but that is something to consider. Again, more on S3 is a whole nother topic. So pieces as we go. Now we get to the great abyss, the adventure, community AMIs. So the world wants to make money. And Amazon said, you know what? This is a pretty good place to do that. Why don't you, world, businesses, individual entrepreneurs, to companies, to all kinds of things, why don't you create your own AMIs and try to sell them? Now, immediately when you come here, you're overwhelmed by the amount. Look at this. This is 1 to 50 of 4,400 and 100 and what did I just made up a number there. 4,417 different AMI images that the community are making available to you. Now, if you look at these, it's kind of like, huh? What? Huh? what is this thing? So keep in mind, this is not the place to browse for images. This is a place to select your images that you've previously searched for on the AWS Marketplace, or browsing the community AMIs themselves. So let's look at the AWS Marketplace. If I could envision this Amazon Marketplace as a physical location, that's exactly what I would think of it as. This big marketplace where all of these different vendors have their tents set up and they're trying to sell me things. They're like, hey, come over here, buy some roller skates for $5. He's got these fancy roller skates he's throwing in the air, or buy a watch. That's the picture I get. But obviously, we're not selling roller skates or watch. We're selling pre-built images that vendors have put together to save you time and give you a solid solution to where it's zero hassle on your side. For example, let's look at that. I mean, we have, for instance, deployment stacks. LAMP is really common in the Linux world. It's an acronym standing for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. It kind of puts all of those into one stack. Now you can, I'll say, if you know a little bit about Linux, you can roll out LAMP pretty easily. But maybe this vendor has done some customization to it that makes it a little bit better or a little easier to roll out, or maybe they've added things to it. So if you're curious, you can click on it and see, okay, well, it looks like nobody has rated this product. It's a 32-bit image, runs on EC2 and EBS. That's the elastic block storage. Remember, we talked about kind of a virtual hard drive that stays if you shut the machine down. Here's what it is, and they kind of roll it out. This is what we're doing. Now you might say, well, what does this vendor get out of it? Well, let's look over here, pricing details. And this is the cool thing Amazon did. They allowed these vendors, these little tent owners that are selling you things, to price it in the same kind of model. So this vendor decided, you know what? If you run this as a micro instance, we're not going to charge you anything. We're not charging anything on top of what Amazon is charging you. Amazon's charging you 2 cents an hour to run it as a micro. We won't, go ahead and kick the tires, try it out. That's fine by us. Now, if you really start using this and you say, okay, I want to run it as a small instance, well, then we're going to charge you. Now, this vendor, whomever this vendor is, Turnkey Linux is the name of the vendor, is going to sell this to you at 15, or sorry, I said 15, 1.5 cents an hour to run it that way, in addition to the 8 cents an hour that EC2 or Amazon's charging you. So here's your total price. You see how this works? So by using the AWS, the Amazon Marketplace, you're able to find all of these different vendors that are able to give you pretty sweet appliances, and that they get their little charge on top of it, depending on what it is. I mean, look at this Checkpoint. That's not just a small vendor. Checkpoint's huge, and they're saying, hey, you can run our firewall software as a virtual AWS appliance. That's awesome. And look at this, bring your own license, BYOL. To where if I choose this, they're saying, we're not going to charge you. We've built an AMI which includes all of the features, I'm assuming, I haven't looked deeply into this, but all of the features of our firewall platform, and we're going to let you run it for free, as long as you, of course, buy a license from us. So what they're saying is, we're not going to charge you anything more to run this in an AWS environment. You just need to give us a call and say, what's the cost to buy a license for a Checkpoint firewall? And so, that's just in addition to whatever AWS is charging you, or Amazon is charging, to run the EC2 server itself. You see how this works? So that's what the marketplace is. So you can see, going about it this way, this is just an extra way to pick it. You can go to the marketplace and say, well, I want to continue. I want to buy and review, buy this instance from Checkpoint, and slap it in my account. Or you can search for the actual instance name from this console. But I'll say most of the time you won't do that. Now, the community, it's not, when you go to the community, you're getting more than just what the marketplace has. So I could, for instance, go to go to Google and just type in community AMIs. And let's go right here. And right there, I mean, now I'm out of the marketplace. I'm in just the general community where just about anybody can submit whatever instances they want. You can come down here and submit your own AMI that benefits the community. It's kind of like, it's people who make like those free iPhone applications, right? You're like, how do you make money out of this? Well, maybe they're doing it to benefit the community. Oh, they're a good person, or maybe they're doing it to get their name out there. I created an awesome AMI. You want to check this out? I'll make it available for free because I'm hoping that you'll buy buy my premium services, or that you'll hire me, or that, whatever their motivation is, they can submit AMIs to the system. So that's your three choices when you're starting. So let's choose a quick start with let's roll out Windows 2008 R2. How about that? So I hit select. Now, big choice right here. Number one, how many instances do you want to roll out at the same time, and how big are they? Now keep in mind, when I selected this, I saw it was free tier eligible. 2008 R2. Well, that free tier only applies to the micro instances. So if you can see right there, free tier eligible. If I want to launch one micro instance, it is free tier eligible, and I can start running it and starts counting against those hours. You remember it was like 750 hours of micro instances are included. So if I, for instance, said I want to launch 10 instances, and by the way, they're not. You can't just go out there and say, I want 1,000 micro instances. Go, Amazon. They're going to limit you because they don't want somebody coming in just blowing up their system. So you can choose the number of instances, but now if you're running 10 instances all at the same time, that's essentially every hour is going to count against 10 hours of your 750 free. So keep that in mind. So you can drop down, and you can see once you move beyond the micro into the small, into the different cores, or into the different provisioning, that's where we're going. Oh man, I just thought of something. I need to talk about the provisioning. Okay, so let me do this before I get into because I'm going to save that for the next nugget. What are these? What is an ECU CPU compared to a core? I mean, what's the difference between those two? Okay, so we'll talk about that in a second. Availability zone. Where are you launching this instance? You remember the North California region, US West, had two different availability zones, so I get to pick which one it goes in. Now you also have the ability to say, I would like a spot instance. So instead of saying this is where I want it, this is availability zone I want it in, I can say this is the spot instant pricing I want to choose from. So that gets to the other big topic I wanted to talk about here. Help me understand the pricing. Wow, I just realized I bit off more than I could chew. There's a lot to the pricing models, and I don't want to short you any information, so I'm going to break that into a nugget of its own. For now, what we have seen is accessing the AWS Management Console, which is key, of course, and then choosing an AMI image from your own, or from Amazon store, or from the community or the marketplace, and putting it into your system and generating an instance. Now, I want to make sure, as I'm wrapping up, that again, I've communicated the big picture. I know I've done this in a previous nugget, but I just want to talk about where that goes once you've chosen it. The AMI image is, again, just a frozen in place hard drive. Think of it, people draw hard drives like that sometimes, and sometimes it's a database. But it's a frozen in place hard drive, frozen in time. And I say, I want that image. I want to run that image. It now generates itself into an instance. Where it runs, you choose. It can either run in ephemeral storage. I'll just put EPH so I don't embarrass myself spelling that wrong. Ephemeral storage, which means it's running on a physical server somewhere that, whatever RAID storage set is attached to that server, that it's running just like normal virtual servers do, ephemeral storage. But the problem, I shouldn't say the problem, the thing to be aware of is that when you turn that thing off, that ephemeral image is lost, and now you're back to whatever the AMI is. So that ephemeral image, that instance that was running, you want to make sure that that's writing data. If it's changing a database, it's changing a database server that is permanent, that is storing in S3, or if it's a web server that it's pulling images and things like that from a central place that doesn't go away. Doesn't go away when you shut that server down. Now, the beauty of ephemeral storage is when you run that instance, you're only paying the flat hourly charge for what that instance is. You could also choose to run that instance, turn that AMI into an instance running on EBS. And EBS is a permanent storage place to where it now runs as an instance. It has its own hard drive storage location. And when you turn off that instance, it's saved there. The drawback is you are going to pay a little bit more for that. You're paying a storage cost for the elastic-based storage, the EBS storage that you're putting that file, or I should say that instance that's running on. So that's where you go once you have chosen that image and how those fit together. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.